She told him to burn the papers. That's the line I caught in the elevator, whispered between two junior analysts who didn't know I was standing right behind them. Somebody's coffee sloshed. Nobody breathed. I'd only been at Hartlow Systems 11 months, and already the rumor mill had turned Freya into a legend, the founder who once looked her own father dead in the eye and told him his marriage contract belonged in a fireplace. I didn't know yet that the story was true. I didn't know about the eviction notice folded into quarters in her father's coat pocket, worn soft at the creases from being carried too long. I just knew this. The woman running our quarterly all-hands terrified grown men twice her age, and I was already half in love with the way she said, "Next slide," like a verdict. My name's Whitfield. I run product at Hartlow, and in 6 days our board would vote on whether Freya kept her own company. Here's what nobody tells you about a proxy fight. It doesn't look like war. It looks like spreadsheets, cap tables, quiet phone calls made from stairwells. Freya ran the numbers herself, refusing to hand the model to an analyst, because she said a founder who doesn't know her own dilution schedule doesn't deserve a board seat. Augustus is calling investors, she told me, not looking up from her laptop. 3 monitors glowed behind her, casting that blue-white light that makes everyone look a little like a ghost. Her father, Augustus Falk, had built half his fortune on other people's silence. He'd arranged her marriage 4 years back to a shipping heir, purely to cover debts he'd buried under 3 shell companies. Freya found out 2 days before the ceremony. She canceled it from a payphone outside a courthouse because her own phone had been shut off, by him, to keep her from doing exactly that. She built Hartlow from a folding table in her cousin's garage. 18 months later, Augustus needed a board seat in her company to save what was left of his name. She gave it to him. That was her mistake, and mine to help her fix. Sensory detail nobody puts in the pitch deck, the smell of solder and cold pizza that lives permanently in engineering, mixed with the ozone hum of servers running a load test nobody remembers scheduling. Freya walked that floor like she owned every wire in it, because she did, technically, though technically was starting to feel like a word with teeth. "Talk to me about the term sheet," I said, catching her by the whiteboard where she was recalculating voting shares for the 4th time that hour. "Which one?" "Augustus is trying to get Meridian Capital to flip their proxy. If he pulls 2 more board seats into his column, he doesn't need a majority. He just needs quorum plus his own vote plus the tiebreak. And if he gets it, then my own board strips me of operational control of the division he's already bled dry, hands it back to him, and calls it stabilizing leadership." She said it flat, no shake in her voice, but her hand, when she capped the marker, trembled just slightly, a small human crack in all that composure. "Freya, don't." She held up a palm. "Don't do the sympathetic voice. I've had 4 years of people doing the sympathetic voice at me. Fine, I'll lean against the desk. Then I'll do the annoying voice instead. What's the counterplay?" That got the ghost of a smile. "Now you're useful." We found the folded eviction notice by accident. It slid out of an old file box Freya had shipped from her father's storage unit, back when she still paid his rent out of guilt she'd never admit to. Yellowed at the folds. Dated 11 years back, before Hartlow even existed, before the marriage plot, before any of it. She stared at it a long moment. "This is from the year he lost the house, the real one, on Aldermont, not the story he tells at dinner parties. You never mentioned." She said, "There's a lot I don't mention." She folded it back into its original creases, careful, like handling something alive. He built his whole comeback on people not knowing he'd ever fallen, and instead of fixing it, he tried to sell me to fix it for him. I didn't say anything smart. Sometimes the smart thing is silence, and I'd learned that from watching her run meetings. She let quiet do the talking when words would only get in the way. "I'm not doing that again," she said. "Whatever happens Thursday, I'm not folding myself smaller to keep him comfortable." "Good," I said, "because I've seen your term sheet. You don't need to." "You're actually going to stand up in front of the entire board and say that?" That's how the day opened. Freya's voice, sharp through the glass of the war room, aimed at her general counsel, a soft-spoken woman named Priya Oduya who hadn't flinched in 6 years of representing founders under fire. "I'm going to stand up," Priya said, "and read your father's own emails back to him, the ones where he pressured 3 board members using leverage he doesn't actually hold anymore. It's not a speech, Freya. It's a fact pattern." I stepped in halfway through, coffee in each hand, because somebody had to remember we were human beings who needed caffeine, and not just voting rights lawyers. "Everything all right in here?" "We're rebuilding the entire proxy strategy in 36 hours, so no, nothing's all right. Everything is extremely productive, though." I handed her the coffee. Our fingers brushed. Neither of us mentioned it, though I noticed, the way I noticed most things about her by then, quietly and completely. "Whitfield?" She said my name like she was testing whether it would hold weight. "If this goes badly Thursday, you know Augustus will gut product first. He thinks anything he doesn't understand is expendable. Then we make sure it doesn't go badly." She almost smiled again. Almost was becoming a habit with her, and I found I didn't mind waiting for the rest of it. Rain against the windows of the 41st floor, the kind that turns the whole skyline into a smear of gold and gray. Freya hadn't slept. I could tell by the second cup of coffee going cold on her desk, untouched, forgotten, beside a printout covered in her handwriting, vesting schedules, burn rate projections, a column labeled simply leverage, with 3 names crossed out and 1 circled twice. "He called," she said, without looking up. "My father. Left a voicemail." "What'd he say?" "That I owe him an apology for humiliating the family by canceling the wedding. 4 years later, and he still thinks I'm the one who needs to say sorry." She laughed, short and disbelieving. "He's about to lose control of half his own division, and he's worried about my manners." "Do you want to call him back?" "No." She finally met my eyes. "I want to win Thursday. Then maybe there's something worth saying to him. Not before." I sat on the edge of her desk, close enough that the rain light caught the tired set of her jaw. "For what it's worth, I don't think you were ever the disgrace they made you out to be. I know that now." Her voice softened, just barely. "Took me 4 years and a term sheet to believe it, but I know it." Boardrooms don't announce their tension. They just get quiet in a specific way, the kind of quiet that has a texture to it, heavy and expectant, like the air right before a server room alarm goes off. 12 board members, 1 conference call patched in from Zurich, Augustus Falk seated at the far end wearing the same watch he'd worn to the cancelled wedding 4 years back. I only knew that detail because Freya had told me, low the night before, like a secret she was finally ready to spend. Priya walked the room through the fact pattern first. Then Freya stood. "You've heard my father's version of this company," she said, voice even, unhurried. "That I'm reckless, emotional, that I built Heartlow on a grudge instead of a vision. So let's use the actual numbers instead of the story." She clicked to the next slide. Customer retention, gross margin, the division under Augustus's watch bleeding cash for 6 straight quarters against every metric she'd stabilized twice over. This isn't personal. This is a proxy vote based on performance, and performance has a paper trail. Augustus stood. "She's punishing me," he told the room, "for one arrangement she disagreed with years ago. You mortgaged my future to cover your debts, and when I refused, you told this board I was unstable. I'm not litigating our past today. I'm asking you to vote on our present." The vote came in fast once it started. 14-3.
Augustus's division folded under her authority, effective immediately. He didn't leave right away. He sat there a moment, reached into his coat, and set the eviction notice, the same folded, soft, creased paper, flat on the table in front of him, like he needed something solid to hold on to. "I kept this," he said, to no one and everyone, "so I'd never forget how far I climbed back. I suppose I forgot who helped me the first time." Freya found him in the lobby an hour later, coat half-buttoned, that same paper still folded in his hand. "I'm not apologizing," she said. "Not for the wedding, not for today." "I know." He almost smiled, the family resemblance showing through for the first time all week. "There's an operations lead role opening under the new division structure." She said it plainly, no softness performed for effect, just fact laid out like a term sheet. He blinked, thrown. "You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a chance to actually earn something here, instead of borrowing against it." Her voice caught just slightly, the only crack she let show.
"That's more than I got. I'd like to give it to you anyway." He folded the eviction notice one more time, smaller now, and put it away like he was finally ready to stop carrying it as a warning and start carrying it as a lesson. I watched from the doorway, coffee in hand, thinking about elevator rumors and how wrong they'd gotten her. Not reckless, not a disgrace, just a woman who refused to be sold and built something undeniable instead. She caught my eye across the lobby, didn't smile exactly, just held it a beat longer than she needed to. Some victories look like 14 votes on a boardroom screen. Some look like a folded piece of paper finally set down for good. I know which one she'll remember. Thank you for spending this time with us.